I was a kid, when it became 4th of July, most of us young people in Iowa would go to Lake Okoboji to celebrate because they had a theme park there and kind of a water park, and they had all kinds of things that young people like to do.
Is that Arnold's Park?
Well, I don't know, we called it Okoboji.
Okay.
And a friend of mine and I'm not going to name him personally, I don't think, because I might get in trouble if I do. We decided to take 2 girls to Lake Okoboji on the 4th of July. And I'll call him Smitty. Smitty says, I'll bring the fireworks along. He says, I've got a whole box of what you call bulldogs. They're like a silver-colored firecracker with a fuse out the side. They're very powerful. And he says, we'll shoot those, we'll light them and throw them out the window when we got the girls in there for a little excitement while we're driving down the road. I said, okay. I had a 1938 Ford. It didn't have hydraulic brakes, it just had band brakes on it and stuff like that, but it was a pretty neat old car. And we picked up these 2 girls. They were both nice looking girls. They both went to Titanca High School. And this is the first time we took them out. So we showed them the box of bulldogs, and they said, if you guys shoot those off, we don't want to ride with you. So the box of bulldogs sat in the front seat of the car, and we had them all day long, and didn't shoot any off, and we had a good time with the girls and so on. We came home that night and took the girls, and one girl we had to drop her off. It was somewhere southwest of Titanca, about 6 or 7 miles, and the other girl was east of Titanca, about 4 miles. And we finally took the girls home and dropped them off, and Smitty says, what are we going to do with all these firecrackers we have? We were coming down Old 226, and we were driving probably 50 miles an hour, and I said, well, let's light them and start throwing them out the window. So he said, okay. So he had a book of matches, and he had the whole box of bulldogs sitting between his legs, and they were open, of course. And he lit a match, and he lit one fuse, and he went to throw it out the window, and the fuse was hissing, and he threw it. He didn't have the window down, so it bounced right back into the box of bulldogs. And I said, oh my God, and he dropped the match in the box of bulldogs, and I quick grabbed him from between his legs and set him on the floor because it'd probably blown him to bits. It sat on the floor, and I shut the car off and bailed in the back seat, didn't even try to stop it, the car, and all of a sudden the explosion started, and it was just like a big old popcorn popper. And when we stopped, we had went down through the ditch and into a farmer's field, and when all was said and done, it blew out all the dials on the dashboard, and all the windows were blown out. They weren't completely, unbreakable glass doesn't, all the windows were bulging, and even the trunk door was blown open. One of the bad things about it was I bought some oyster shell for my mother for her chickens that day, and as I was taking them out of my car, the bag broke, and instead of cleaning it all up, I pushed the broken eggshells, or the oyster shells, under the seat, and they flew around like shrapnel and put all little beady holes in all of my upholstery. So the car was one hell of a mess, I'll tell you. So I took Smitty home. His right pant leg was blown off, and his leg was bleeding because he got some of that shrapnel in his leg. And of course I parked my car outside, and the next morning my dad got up, then he walked outside, and all I could hear him say was, "For God's sakes, how the hell did he roll that car without putting a dent in it and all the windows are busted out?" And about that time, Schmitty's old man pulled up to the end of the driveway, and he yelled at my dad. He says, "Your kid almost killed my kid last night with those bulldogs. He's got his leg all bloody and everything like that." And my dad and him almost got in a fist fight out in the driveway. They were arguing. I came down and I was apologizing all over the place, and I told the whole story of what happened. And so the story got around pretty much to everybody, and they wanted me to drive my 1938 Ford car to the young people's meeting at Ramsey Church so everybody could get a good look at it, because people wanted to see how I blew myself up with firecrackers. And every place I went, and every town I went to, they'd always say, "Oh, there's the kid that blew the car up with firecrackers." So even to this day, some people even mention it. So that's the end of that story.